Your focus is being hunted. Every day, every hour, 1,000 voices cry out for your attention. The ping of a notification, the scroll of a feed, the endless stimuli of modern life, all fighting to pull you away from yourself. We live in a world engineered for distraction, where the most valuable asset is not time, but attention. The Stoics knew this war long before smartphones and social media. They too lived in a world full of noise, political chaos, philosophical disputes, personal loss, and human temptation. And yet, they mastered the art of keeping their inner citadel untouched, guarded by unbreakable focus. To them, focus wasn't about zoning out. It wasn't about retreating into silence. It was about aligning thought, speech, and action toward a singular aim, to live with virtue. In every moment they asked, "Is this essential? Does this help me become better?" In this video, we are going to dissect the Stoic understanding of focus, not just as a skill, but as a spiritual stance. We'll explore how to train it, protect it, and use it to cut through the chaos of modern life. No fiction, no fairy tales, only truth. The chapters that follow will guide you into the mind of the Stoics, showing how to reclaim your attention, your energy, and your peace. Let us begin. Chapter 1. Focus is a form of power. Seneca once wrote, "To be everywhere is to be nowhere." In a single line, he summarized what countless modern thinkers now realize. A scattered mind is a weak mind. When you try to attend to everything, you attend to nothing. You become reactive, twitching like a leaf in the wind, responding to every whim of the world. The Stoics viewed attention as a resource, one that must be guarded with the same rigor that a soldier guards a fortress. It is a form of currency more precious than time, for time can pass without you truly being present, but focus demands your full presence. To the Stoics, a mind that is scattered is a mind that is vulnerable, and a vulnerable mind can be led astray, enslaved by noise, pulled in directions that have no bearing on truth or virtue. A person who masters their attention masters their day. A person who masters their day builds momentum, and with enough days aligned, they carve a life of depth, direction, and serenity. They develop rhythm. They find clarity in routine and strength in discipline. They are not swayed by noise or shaken by uncertainty, because their mind remains pointed towards something greater than circumstance. This is not about controlling the world. That is impossible. No matter how organized or deliberate your actions may be, the universe will unfold as it pleases. Storms will come, people will disappoint, plans will unravel. But what you can do, and what the Stoics urge you to do, is train yourself to respond well. Focus is the first step toward that training. It's about learning how to control your response to the flood of input around you. It's about choosing, moment by moment, what deserves the spotlight of your awareness, and refusing to let that light be hijacked by things that do not matter. Epictetus taught that there are things within our control and things outside it. Focus is the bridge, the gateway between these two realms. It is the practical application of his most famous principle. To focus rightly is to live rightly, to tend the garden of your own thoughts rather than stare longingly at the horizon. It is how we step away from the illusion that everything deserves our energy. When we direct our attention to what is within, our judgments, our choices, our actions, we step into our own power. We become still in the center, even if the world spins wildly around us. But when we let our attention be consumed by the external, the praise or insults of others, the unpredictability of outcomes, the whirlwind of events, we fracture. We become guests in our own minds, strangers in our own skin. This is why focus must be cultivated deliberately. It's not something to expect automatically. It is something to choose. Every single day it must be chosen again, because the world will always offer alternatives, easier roads, and seductive diversions. So, if you wish to gain strength in your life, begin here, with your focus. Every day, every hour, you must practice choosing what to care about, and more importantly, what not to. Let the trivial pass through you like wind passing through open hands. Don't try to grasp it. Don't chase after it. Stay rooted in what matters, in what is yours to shape, refine, and express. That is where your peace begins. That is where real freedom is born. Start your day with a simple question. What is the most essential task today? Write it down. For the next 90 minutes, do only that. No notifications, no multitasking, just the task. Let your mind train in the art of staying. Chapter 2. The enemy of focus is distraction by desire. The Stoics weren't naive about human impulses. They knew that most distractions aren't external, they're internal. A desire for pleasure, approval, novelty, or escape. These inner cravings seduce your attention, not because they are powerful in themselves, but because the untrained mind gives them permission. The craving arises subtly. It whispers, promising ease, relief, or entertainment. It tells you that discomfort is the enemy and ease is the prize. It promises something sweet, something light, something easy, at the expense of something meaningful. And when we do not question it, when we do not pause and reflect, we give it control. It's not the strength of the temptation that matters, it's the absence of mental discipline. In reality, distraction is often just desire wearing a mask, a subtle wish to flee from discomfort, from boredom, from effort. It is an urge to slip into the stream of passive consumption, to lose the sharp edge of consciousness, to avoid the hard but honest work of being present with ourselves. We flee into distraction the way a child hides under the covers, momentarily soothed, but ultimately untouched by growth. And it is in that gap, between impulse and awareness, that the battle for focus is won or lost. It's where you reclaim or forfeit yourself. That moment is not neutral, it is defining. What you do with it either sharpens or dulls your inner edge. Marcus Aurelius warned against being jerked like a puppet by every impulse. He reminded himself daily, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. In this short command, he offered a lifelong challenge. It is a challenge to live deliberately, to not simply float through life pulled by cravings, but to examine each impulse. Why do I want this? What am I avoiding? Is this aligned with who I wish to become? This questioning becomes a daily practice, not one of suppression, but of self-understanding. When you practice this, your desires become visible. They no longer lurk in the background. You shine a light on them, and in doing so, you become your own gatekeeper. Your attention stops being a public utility and becomes private property. When you sit down to work and your hand reaches for your phone, that is not just a bad habit. It's a moral moment. It is your will against your weakness. That reach is an act of surrender, not simply to the phone, but to a pattern of avoidance. And the more you surrender, the more your ability to resist erodes. It may seem small, but it is the beginning of a larger pattern, the gradual erosion of intention, integrity, and identity. It starts with checking a message and ends with losing the day. It starts with one glance and ends in an hour of unconscious scrolling. It's a crack in the wall of your discipline, and over time, those cracks become fractures. The Stoics didn't see willpower as something to be conserved. They saw it as something to be exercised, shaped through daily resistance, strengthened like a muscle, forged in the repetition of principled decisions. To them, character was not formed in grand gestures, but in the small, ordinary moments when no one is watching, the quiet space between temptation and choice. Every time you resist a small temptation, you gain momentum. You grow not just stronger, but clearer. You train your focus not by avoiding temptation, but by confronting it with clarity and conviction. You stare it down, you acknowledge it, you breathe through it, and then you move through it. You assert, in that small choice, your ability to govern yourself, to take the reins of your own attention. Focus is not just about saying yes to one thing. It is about saying no to 100 other things. No to the seemingly urgent, no to the convenient, no to the shiny things that leave you feeling empty. It's about building a mental filter, one that allows in only what serves your growth, your integrity, your deeper aim, and keeps out the noise that scatters your energy and fragments your spirit. You become selective, not from arrogance, but from care. You begin to see your attention as sacred. You begin to understand that not everything deserves your gaze, not everything is worthy of your time. In a world built to steal your focus, that understanding becomes a revolutionary act. And it is that no, said not with frustration, but with strength and peace, that builds discipline. That no is a gift to your future self. It is an act of love, a declaration that your life is worth guarding. The discipline that follows is not harsh or rigid, but rooted in understanding. It is discipline with compassion, born not from self-punishment, but from self-respect. You are no longer saying no just because you should, but because you know, deeply and viscerally, the cost of saying yes to the wrong things. And that knowledge, lived, felt, tested, becomes your compass. It points you back to yourself. It keeps you walking your path with dignity, with resolve. And in that dignity, there is focus. In that focus, there is peace. And in that peace, there is freedom. The freedom of a person who has chosen to live by purpose rather than pull. Create a distraction list. Every time you're tempted to do something else during deep work, write it down. Don't do it. Just write it. At the end of the session, review the list. Over time, you'll see what tempts you most, and you'll begin to break the spell. Chapter 3. Clarity before focus. Before you can focus, you must know what matters. This was the foundation of the Stoic way, clarity of purpose. If you do not know what you serve, you will serve everything. You will move fast and work hard, but arrive nowhere meaningful. Without direction, your attention becomes scattered. Without a North Star, you spend your energy chasing shadows. The Stoics constantly returned to the question, what is the good? Their answer was clear and unwavering: virtue, courage, justice, temperance, wisdom. These four were not abstract ideals to them, they were living principles. They were not theories, but tools for life. Virtue was the compass by which they navigated every storm, every temptation, and every uncertainty. To live with virtue was to live rightly, regardless of external chaos. Everything else, wealth, status, pleasure, even health, was seen as indifferent, not meaningless, but secondary. They could be enjoyed when present and accepted when absent, but they could never be the goal. To make them the aim was to lose yourself. When your values are clear, your focus becomes clear, because it now has a destination. It knows where to go. Your efforts now align with something bigger than your ego or emotions. You become directed by principle, not pulled by impulse. You can spend your life climbing ladders, only to realize they were leaning against the wrong walls. You can work tirelessly, sacrificing peace and presence, and yet find yourself empty. You can collect accolades, accumulate money, and even win the admiration of others, and still feel directionless. Focus is powerful, but if it's aimed in the wrong direction, it leads to ruin. A bomb, after all, is just focused energy, but that energy destroys. It's not enough to be productive. You must be rightly guided. Your focus must be attached to wisdom, not just intensity. If you don't decide what matters most, the world will decide for you, and it will not choose virtue. It will choose vanity. It will choose urgency. It will choose what makes noise, not what makes meaning. It will prioritize the short term over the eternal, the shallow over the deep. Without clarity, you drift. You move, but you don't progress. You react, but you don't act. You follow momentum without intention. And over time, this creates a kind of spiritual fatigue, a sense of weariness not from doing too much, but from doing too little of what matters. Without purpose, you get lost in busyness. You fill your calendar, chase every opportunity, and check off endless boxes, but none of it nourishes your soul. You become efficient, but not effective. You move faster and feel emptier. You lose yourself in the swirl of distraction. Clarity gives birth to priority. It gives you the eyes to see through the fog of obligations and noise. It makes the invisible visible, and what once seemed urgent now seems irrelevant. And priority clears the fog. It becomes a scalpel, cutting away the inessential, the shallow, the wasteful. Once you know your values, you know what to give your time to. You stop saying yes reflexively. You pause. You create space between impulse and action. You ask, does this align with my purpose? Does this reflect my deeper aim? And through that question, you begin to live more deliberately. You learn to preserve your attention for what reflects your principles. You spend your time like a Stoic spends his energy, carefully, consciously, and only on what serves the soul. Each choice becomes a statement of character. Each action becomes a vote for the person you want to be. When you know your aim, distractions lose their lure. They don't disappear, but they become less magnetic. They are simply not aligned. They don't fit into the framework of your values. They don't move you toward your ideal. They become obvious detours rather than seductive escapes. You no longer need to battle every distraction. Many of them lose their grip by default. Your path becomes narrower, yes, but also deeper, more meaningful. The narrowing is not a loss. It is a gain. You no longer wander the fields. You dig a well, and that well draws from the deepest part of you. It pulls from the roots of your integrity, your wisdom, your intention. And that depth is where true focus lives. Not scattered across a dozen shallow pursuits, but concentrated in a single worthy aim that shapes you into who you were meant to be. This is not confinement. This is liberation. To know your aim and walk it without distraction is one of the most powerful freedoms a human being can possess. Once a week, journal with this prompt. What do I value most, and is how I spend my time aligned with that? Be honest. If you say you value health, yet scroll more than you move, there's your work. Realign. Chapter 4. Focus as a daily practice, not a personality trait. Some people may think they can't be focused like other people they see. They assume it's something you're either born with or not. Some believe they can't have a focused mindset all the time, or that they need to feel a certain way, calm, motivated, stress-free, before they can focus. But that mindset is what keeps them stuck. The Stoics would reject that idea completely. Focus, to them, was not a talent. It was a discipline. It wasn't something you waited for. It was something you built. Like physical strength, it is forged through repetition, strain, recovery, and consistency. It is grown through intention and action. A Stoic believed you can be focused, even in times of rest and relaxation, because focus is not intensity, it's presence. It is being where you are, fully and freely. No Stoic was born focused. They trained it. They cultivated it deliberately. They returned to it every day, like a musician to a scale, a monk to a prayer, or a soldier to a drill. They knew that a wandering mind was natural, but a trained mind was possible. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations not to remind others, but to remind himself. His journal was his gym, his practice ground. Focus slips, so we recenter. Over and over again. Don't wait for perfect motivation. Don't wait for silence or ideal conditions. They rarely come. Most days the world will offer chaos, not calm. Distraction, not discipline. Begin with what you have, the noise, the stress, the distractions, and build focus within them. That is where the Stoics thrived, not in perfect monasteries or mountaintop retreats, but in the midst of cities, duties, and conflict. The world will not get quieter. You must grow quieter inside. That quiet must come from discipline, not from circumstance. It must be summoned, not stumbled upon. That's what the Stoics did. They didn't escape chaos. They created stillness inside it. They learned to focus in the marketplace, in the courtroom, in the palace, in the pain. Discipline is remembering what you want, even when everything else wants to make you forget. It is holding a thread through the wind. Focus is not born in ideal moments. It is built in the broken ones. It grows when you are tired, but return anyway. When you are discouraged, but begin anyway. When you feel scattered, but decide to take one small action. The most powerful form of focus isn't the kind that shows up when things are easy. It's the kind that chooses to show up anyway. It's the ability to return, again and again, to recenter, to gather your wandering mind and guide it back, gently but firmly. This return is not failure, it is training. And with each return, the mind strengthens. Treat focus like you treat your body. Warm it up, stretch it, challenge it. Just as you wouldn't expect to lift heavy weights without practice, you shouldn't expect to focus for long hours without preparation. Give your mind resistance. Put it under load. Let it struggle and recover. Just as muscles grow through cycles of effort and rest, so too does attention. Start small. Focus for 10 minutes, then 15, then 30. Build endurance with patience, not pressure. Each session becomes a training ground, a chance to test and strengthen the muscle of your mind. But attention also needs forgiveness. You don't become focused by shaming yourself every time you drift. You become focused by returning with discipline and kindness. When you notice your mind wandering, that's not failure, that's awareness. And awareness is the first step toward mastery. The more you return to the breath, to the task, to the moment, the more it becomes second nature. The brain learns the rhythm of returning. You train your nervous system to stay, to stop chasing the next thing and settle into the now. You train your mind to return without panic. You learn to love the practice of coming back, not just once but repeatedly. You stop expecting to lock in on command and start embracing the practice of refocusing. You start to associate effort with peace. Focus becomes less about willpower and more about rhythm. Your mind begins to trust the cadence. It no longer waits for inspiration. It trusts the pattern. It knows that when you begin, focus will follow. You no longer need the feeling to take action. You act, and the feeling comes. Focus becomes not just a tool, but a refuge. A place you go when the world feels too loud. A place you return to when you forget yourself. It becomes your home base, strong, quiet, steady. It becomes a form of identity, not something you occasionally have, but something you regularly return to. You start to see focus not just as a technique, but as a trait, something you can rely on, something that lives inside you. Like the Stoics' inner citadel, it protects your essence from external chaos. You carry it with you, not because the world allows it, but because you've built it. You've shaped it with choice, forged it in struggle, protected it through repetition. It's not a gift, it's a creation, and that makes it yours, always accessible, always ready. You've done the work. Now the focus lives in you, not as a momentary state, but as a grounded way of being. Use the Pomodoro technique, 25 minutes of deep work, followed by a 5-minute break. Repeat this cycle 4 times, then take a longer break of 15 to 30 minutes. This technique helps you train your attention in intervals, giving your mind both challenge and recovery. It also builds momentum by turning your work into a rhythm instead of a grind. Don't wait for inspiration. Don't rely on motivation. Build the habit of showing up regardless of how you feel. Let the timer become your ritual, your bell of awareness. Over time, your mind will know. When the timer starts, it's time to lock in, not with force, but with familiarity. It becomes an anchor in your day, signaling your nervous system to focus, act, and stay present. Let this structure free you, not limit you, because discipline, paradoxically, is what creates mental freedom. Chapter 5. Focus and the Stoic Art of Negative Visualization. One of the most powerful Stoic tools is premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. It may seem dark, but it sharpens the mind. When you imagine loss, difficulty, or death, it burns away the trivial. It reminds you what truly matters. Seneca advised us to rehearse adversity so that we may not be surprised by it. When you begin your day with the thought that everything could be taken, your health, your work, your loved ones, your focus becomes precise. The noise drops away. Life feels urgent, real, and worthy of full attention. Most people wait for crisis to focus. The Stoics prepared their minds before the storm. They practiced mental discipline not as an escape from pain, but as preparation for it. By contemplating what could go wrong, you learn to treasure what is. You begin to see the fragility in all things, your routine, your comforts, even your very breath. Nothing is permanent, nothing is promised. And in that realization, you find urgency, not despair. You stop drifting through your day, assuming there will always be more time. You awaken to the miracle of the moment, and the miracle becomes your anchor. This is not pessimism, this is clarity. The Stoics did not visualize misfortune to become cynical. They did it to become deeply present. They practiced premeditatio malorum not to dwell on sadness, but to cultivate reverence. They understood that the constant expectation of permanence is what breeds distraction, entitlement, and emotional dullness. When you truly see that life can change in an instant, and often does, you stop wasting it on things that don't matter. You become attentive to the details, to the whispers of reality, the sound of laughter, the warmth of sunlight on your face, the subtle shift in air as someone enters the room, the small but sacred routines of daily life. The feeling of being alive becomes a gift you no longer take for granted. You treasure what is here, now, and you give it your full presence. And when you treasure it, you give it your full presence. Not because you're trying to, but because you can't help it. You stop scanning for what's next. You stop dividing your attention between possibilities and regrets. You let go of the fantasy that something better lies just around the corner. You slow down, breathe in, and offer yourself completely to the moment. You listen more deeply. You notice more quickly. That is focus, not forced, but flowing from gratitude. It's the kind of focus that comes from love, from reverence, from awareness of how little time we actually have. It's not driven by pressure, but by appreciation. Not rigid, but alive. Not tense, but alert. It is not about holding on. It's about letting go of everything except this, right here, right now. And when you do, you find that this moment is enough, not because it is perfect, but because it is real. Each morning, spend 5 minutes visualizing a day where something you rely on is gone. Your job, your mobility, your routine. Then return to the present and say, and yet, I still have it. Let that insight drive your focus into this day. Chapter 6. Focus through obstacles, the Stoic response to resistance. Obstacles are not interruptions to your focus, they are the very terrain on which your focus is built. The Stoics saw resistance not as something to avoid, but as something to use. Marcus Aurelius famously wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This principle is more than poetic. It is deeply practical. It reveals the Stoic genius, not to remove struggle, but to repurpose it, not to curse the barrier, but to walk through it with honor. When something challenges your focus, a sudden problem, a harsh comment, an unexpected delay, you are being offered a moment of refinement. These moments aren't distractions from the path, they are the path. Your attention is being called not away, but deeper. The world is asking, can you remain present even here? Can you still hold your task, your purpose, your presence, not in ideal conditions, but in chaotic ones? Can you still act with clarity when the room is loud, when the clock is ticking, when the heart is heavy? A distracted mind runs from resistance. A focused mind turns toward it. It does not flinch, does not flee, but meets difficulty with stillness. The Stoic does not wait for a clear path. He clears the path by walking it. He understands that hesitation breeds confusion and inaction invites distraction. So he moves, not because it is easy, but because it is necessary. He does not rely on peace to remain centered. He generates peace by standing firmly amid the noise. This peace is not passive, but practiced. It is not found, it is forged. When distractions arise, he does not recoil. He does not blame the moment or the people around him. He breathes, he grounds, he chooses again. And in doing so, he turns obstacles into opportunities. The very thing that tempts him to fracture becomes the tool through which he strengthens. It is the whetstone for his focus, the forge for his will, the crucible in which presence is purified. This is not just a mindset, it's a system of response, a trained reflex. The Stoic does not merely react, he responds, consciously, deliberately. The Stoic pauses, he reframes, he acts, he understands that reaction is the way of the untrained, the impulsive, the unfocused. But response is the way of the disciplined, the cultivated. He observes his emotion and chooses his judgment. He notices the pull of frustration, but does not follow it blindly. He acknowledges discomfort without turning it into a story. He separates the fact from the fear, the event from the interpretation. He examines his response, not his environment. He doesn't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" He asks, "How can I meet this well?" He does not waste time wishing things were different. He does not fantasize about ease. He does not fall into the trap of hoping for a world without friction. Instead, he sharpens himself against the friction. He does not curse reality. He converses with it. He studies it. He adapts to it. He stands before it like a craftsman before stone, carving meaning and movement with clarity. He does not wish things were easier. He wishes to become stronger, and in focusing through resistance, he becomes that. He welcomes the demand for strength, for it gives him the chance to practice mastery. Every setback becomes an invitation to level up. Every frustration becomes fuel. Each delay becomes a place to breathe. Each rejection a reminder of resilience. The very challenge becomes the exercise. The very moment of tension becomes the training. The very point of friction becomes the edge that refines his attention. He transforms hardship into clarity and emerges, not just unshaken, but sharpened. Not just surviving the moment, but mastering it. Not just enduring difficulty, but transcending it with character and precision. Choose one daily frustration, a long line, traffic, a difficult email, and instead of avoiding it, welcome it as training. Breathe into it, focus through it. Let it sharpen your attention rather than scatter it. Chapter 7. Focus in relationships, guarding your inner space. It's easy to stay focused in solitude. The real test of focus is staying centered when you're around others, especially those who test your patience, challenge your values, or pull you into emotional noise. Solitude offers simplicity, but social life introduces complexity, and it's in this complexity that the Stoic learns to grow. The Stoics were deeply social thinkers, but they did not believe in abandoning their inner world just to blend with the outer one. To them, true strength was measured not by how still one could be in silence, but by how still one could remain in the noise of the crowd. Epictetus reminded us that we cannot control others, only our judgments about them. In relationships, this truth becomes the bedrock of Stoic focus. You don't lose your center just because someone else is off balance. You don't adopt someone's anxiety, urgency, or anger as your own. You don't let another person's storm stir your own inner waters. You guard your inner space, not by withdrawing, but by drawing a firm boundary between what is yours and what is theirs. This boundary is not emotional coldness, it is clarity. This does not mean you detach emotionally. It means you stay intentional, you stay anchored, you engage fully but not blindly. You listen with full presence, but you don't abandon your values. You speak with clarity, but you don't chase approval. You offer compassion, but you don't sacrifice your peace. You give your attention freely, but never at the expense of your integrity. The Stoic learns to show up, not to win arguments or please others, but to embody their principles regardless of the room they enter. Focus in relationships is not about being aloof. It's about being sovereign. It's about maintaining the same clarity with others that you practice when alone. It's knowing where you end and another person begins. It's carrying your values into the arena of emotion, not leaving them at the door. Because the more grounded you are in your values, the less likely you are to be swayed by emotional chaos. You become the steady flame in a room full of wind, not because you avoid the storm, but because you've rooted your fire deep enough to withstand it. Before difficult conversations, pause and ask, what values do I want to embody in this interaction? Write them down. Let that be your anchor, not the other person's behavior. Chapter 8. The Body and Focus. Physical Discipline as Mental Clarity. The Stoics trained their minds, but they also trained their bodies. They knew that focus is not just a mental activity, it is also physical. A sluggish body drags the mind with it. An undisciplined body weakens the will. When the body is tired, overfed, or tense, the mind finds it harder to rest, to aim, to stay. The way you breathe, move, eat, and rest shapes your ability to stay present. Your physiology becomes the landscape your mind must travel, and if that terrain is broken, cluttered, or neglected, no philosophy will make the journey smooth. Seneca and Cato practiced voluntary discomfort. These weren't acts of masochism, they were exercises in clarity. They trained discomfort so that the mind could become resilient. They believed that voluntarily embracing physical difficulty built mental grit. It prepared them to endure the involuntary challenges that life would inevitably bring. They understood the connection between physical endurance and inner stillness. They trained the body not to look a certain way, but to carry virtue more steadily. Discipline in the body was not separate from virtue, it was an expression of it. In modern life, we often ignore this. We overconsume, underrest, overstimulate. We deprive ourselves of movement and overload ourselves with choice. And then we wonder why we can't focus, why we're restless, unfocused, or numb. Focus thrives in simplicity. It is fed by rhythm, by rest, by movement. A good night's sleep, a clear walk, a moment of stillness. These are not luxuries. They are the groundwork for clarity. You do not have to become a Spartan, but you must become conscious of how your body affects your mind. You must recognize that your physical habits speak directly to your mental clarity. Your sleep, your nutrition, your posture, your movement, they are not secondary to your focus, they are fundamental to it. You must live in your body like it matters, because it does. Your body is not just the vessel you live in, it is the stage on which your philosophy is performed. The Stoic path does not end at the mind. It begins in the body, in how you breathe under pressure, in how you carry yourself through fatigue, in how you remain still while discomfort knocks at the door. The Stoic knows the mind is a rider, but the body is the horse. And a wise rider does not curse a wild horse. He trains it with patience, with discipline, with a long view. He builds trust with it over time, not by pushing it to exhaustion, but by cultivating resilience and rhythm. He listens to its signals and understands its limits, knowing that pain often speaks a language of misalignment. He feeds it well, works it regularly, and knows when it needs rest, not as indulgence, but as strategy. He honors the interdependence between mind and flesh, understanding that if one falls out of balance, the other quickly follows. A rider cannot go far if the horse stumbles at every mile. If the horse is wild, exhausted, or malnourished, the ride will be rough, and the journey will suffer. Your ideas may be strong, but they will not travel. Your will may be sharp, but it will become dulled by the drag of a neglected vessel. You will try to focus, and your body will resist you, with restlessness, with fatigue, with tension. You will sit down to work, but your posture will fold. You will try to be present, but your breath will be shallow. The body, untrained, speaks in the language of distraction. But when the body is well conditioned, steady in routine, balanced in energy, the mind can stay focused longer, recover faster, and lead with clarity. It becomes a co-partner in presence, not a burden, but a foundation. It holds the mind upright, just as the mind guides its motion. Train the body, and you support the rider. You build a platform for presence. You create endurance, not only for the gym or the trail, but for the tension of daily life, for hard conversations, long focus sessions, emotional fatigue, and the kind of psychological stress that wears down the undisciplined. The body, when honed, becomes a vessel for willpower. It holds your posture when you're tempted to slump. It breathes for you when your mind forgets to slow down. It steps forward when fear tells you to retreat. This is the synergy between action and resilience. A body prepared becomes a partner in the pursuit of clarity. When you care for your body, you don't just move better or look better, you think more clearly. You carry your philosophy not only in thought, but in motion. Each act of strength, each intentional stretch, each early rise, becomes a ritual of alignment between body and mind. These actions do not exist separately from your values. They are your values embodied. With more grace, more poise, and more power, you endure what life brings, not with panic, but with poise. You don't just survive the day, you move through it with steady composure. The Stoic doesn't seek a perfect body, but a capable one. A body that is trustworthy, one that answers the call of duty without complaint, one that endures winter as well as it enjoys spring, one that holds stillness when the wind rises, when the pressure mounts, when the mind begins to doubt, one that walks with strength when the path turns steep, when the load gets heavier, when the journey stretches longer than expected, one that, like the mind it serves, becomes a living example of practiced control, not through aesthetics or appearance, but through unwavering presence and embodied intention. Commit to one small act of physical discipline daily: a walk, a run, weight training, abdominal workouts, cold water, breath work, or stretching. Let it be a ritual of respect for your body and a tool for sharpening your mind. Chapter 9. Focus and Time. mastering the minutes that shape your life. Time is the ultimate test of focus. It flows with or without you, but how you meet it determines who you become. The Stoics revered time not because it was scarce, but because it was sacred. To them, time was the raw material of virtue, the canvas on which character was painted. Every moment was an invitation to live with excellence or mediocrity. Every passing second asked, "Who are you becoming?" Each instant held within it the seed of transformation or neglect. Seneca said, "People are frugal in guarding their personal property, but as soon as it comes to squandering time, they are most wasteful of the one thing in which it is right to be stingy." That was not just a warning, it was a call to awaken, to become a better guardian of what cannot be replaced, to see time not as something to be managed, but something to be honored, something to be shaped intentionally, not consumed passively. Focus is the art of choosing how you spend your time with intention. It is the discipline of standing at the gates of each minute and deciding who you let in. It is the practice of defending your minutes the way you would defend something precious, because time is not just money, it's life itself. It is breath and possibility, decision and direction. It is the currency of growth and the substance of your legacy. It's the soil in which your habits grow, the vessel in which your thoughts move. Every moment spent aimlessly is a moment you cannot recover. Every distraction, every indulgence in procrastination chips away at the short span we've been granted. Each minute misused is not just lost, it's stolen from the person you could have become. It is a theft of your future self, a cut into your potential, an unnoticed surrender. The Stoic doesn't try to control time, he tries to align himself with it. He studies its rhythm, he honors its pace, he listens for its tempo and tunes his life accordingly. He does not fight the clock, he dances with it. He does not crowd his days, he curates them. He chooses wisely. He places first things first. He is not rushed, but he is alert. He understands the value of stillness and the cost of noise. He does not multitask. He single tasks with intensity, presence, and devotion. He gives his full self to the hour at hand, because he knows the hour may not return. He recognizes that saying yes to one thing is saying no to everything else, and he takes that responsibility seriously. He schedules his days not to fill them, but to give them shape and soul. His calendar is not cluttered with tasks, but organized around meaning, around what truly matters. Time is not an enemy, it is a mirror. It reflects your values by showing you where your attention truly lives. It shows you what you prioritize when no one is watching. Do you spend hours on things that don't matter and call yourself busy? Or do you invest in what is essential and call yourself focused? Your calendar is not just a log of appointments, it is a spiritual ledger. It is an honest account of what you worship. It tells the truth about who you are, what you love, and whether your life is being used or merely consumed. It shows whether you are living with direction or drifting by default. And the Stoic, ever devoted to truth, examines that ledger often, not to judge, but to align, to refine, and to begin again, more focused than before. He does not waste time, he walks with it, step by deliberate step. At the start of each day, write down your top 3 priorities. Then schedule when you'll do them, not just what, but when. Treat those blocks of time as sacred and protect them like your life depends on it. Because it does. Chapter 10. The Stillness Beneath Focus, the Stoic's Final Aim. Focus is not just a tool to get more done. It's not merely a tactic for achievement. In the Stoic view, the purpose of focus is deeper than productivity. It is stillness, it is peace, it is clarity of soul. Productivity may be the outcome, but stillness is the intention. In that stillness, the Stoic discovers freedom. Not freedom from work or responsibility, but freedom from being owned by noise, freedom from mental clutter, freedom from the compulsion to chase every thought and every task. It is a sense of presence so deep that external chaos begins to feel irrelevant. It is a state where decisions emerge from principle, not panic. In that stillness, the mind becomes a sanctuary. True focus is not about narrowing your eyes, it's about widening your heart. It is the art of giving yourself wholly to what is in front of you, not just for efficiency, but for integrity. To bring your full self to one moment is to declare that moment sacred. That moment becomes enough. It becomes the container for your full humanity. It is about living without scattering yourself across 100 thoughts, fears, and fantasies. Focus is presence, and presence is the root of all power. Power not over others, but over yourself. The power to choose your direction. The power to be fully here, undivided, unbothered. To be here, now, completely, is to be unshakable. It is to be aligned, to be undisturbed, not because nothing disturbs you, but because you choose where to root yourself. The final aim of the Stoic is not control, but consent, a willing, thoughtful harmony with what is. Consent to the shape of the moment. Consent to the lessons in the hardship. Consent to live as life unfolds, without resistance to what must be done. And focus is how you arrive there. It is the act of saying, this moment matters. This work matters. This breath matters. Even if the outcome is unclear, even if the work is unseen, you show up fully. You offer your attention not because the world demands it, but because your soul does. It is your answer to chaos, not with reaction, but with rhythm, not with panic, but with peace, not by withdrawing, but by offering your presence as an act of courage. In that gift of focus, you reclaim your freedom. You transform obligation into offering. In this way, focus becomes a form of prayer, not religious, but reverent, not dogmatic, but devotional. It is a spiritual posture, the way you greet the world, the way you inhabit your time, the way you return to yourself when the noise grows louder than your thoughts. It is how you pay attention to what matters most, not just in grand gestures, but in the small, uncelebrated actions that accumulate into character. It is how you sit with your own breath and hear your life speaking softly through the silence. It is how you make peace with the present instead of bargaining with the future. Focus is how you cultivate meaning. It's how you pour care into the simplest of acts. How you write an email, how you listen to a loved one, how you tie your shoes before a walk. It's how you become mindful of the sacred woven into the mundane. It is how you transmute the ordinary into the sacred, not through ritual alone, but through deep attention, the kind that turns dust into gold, routine into reverence, and effort into expression. It is how you remind yourself, day after day, to live with intention, to act with courage, and to return, again and again, to the calm within. The calm that doesn't arise from perfection, but from presence. The calm that isn't dependent on ideal conditions, but is born from inward alignment. The calm that allows you to work, to serve, to lead, and to rest without becoming lost in any of them. The calm that whispers in moments of stress, you are here, you are whole, you are exactly where you need to be. It is the stillness that holds your identity steady when circumstances shake, the quiet that cradles your worth even when the outside world roars with expectation. It is not the calm of a quiet room, but the calm of a quiet spirit. The world will pull at you. It will shout, seduce, and scatter. It will reach for your attention with every screen, every scroll, every fear, every promise of pleasure or urgency. It will disguise its distractions as opportunities and dress its diversions as importance. It will tempt you to believe you are only as good as your last performance, as worthy as your latest achievement, as safe as your strongest distraction. It will whisper lies into your exhaustion, telling you that to be still is to fall behind, that to pause is to be forgotten. It will measure your life by noise, not depth, by visibility, not value. It will beg you to stay busy, even when your soul is asking to slow down. But focus is how you pull yourself back. It is how you find your ground again when the world would rather see you spinning. Focus is how you re-enter the present moment with reverence and resolve, not just dipping your toes into awareness, but submerging yourself in it, not just to your task, but to your truth, not just to what you must do, but to who you are when no one is looking, when the applause fades, when the deadlines disappear, when there is no more noise to distract you. Focus remains, and it is in that quiet that you hear your true voice rise. It is how you say, "This is enough, I am enough, let me begin again." And you do, calmly, clearly, consciously, not because you've mastered the noise, but because you've learned to return to the signal, until it becomes your way of being. Not perfect, but persistent, not hurried, but whole, not dictated by the noise, but grounded in what endures. And this is where the Stoic finds freedom, not in escaping the world, but in remaining whole within it. Each evening, ask yourself, where was I most present today? Where was I absent? Reflect not to judge, but to refine. Focus is not a finish line. It is a daily return. Train it, protect it, honor it,